Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2. Welcome to our channel. We're so excited you're here to join us. Today I have a tutorial kind of craft with me, basically. I have not made one of these before and I just decided to film it and we're just gonna go for it. So I'm excited to do that. I just recently, our church had a garage sale and I found this beautiful vintage game. My parents used to play this all the time. And I think it's from 1963. So it's from 1963. I thought the graphics on here were just adorable. And there's a smaller version of that on the sides and on the ends as well. So that's something that could happen as well, is a smaller journal. But what I'm going to do is make this into a journal cover and a journal. So I'm super excited to try this. I do have some other vintage game boxes, so this might be my push to get those done as well. But what I'm going to do first is just cut this out. I'm going to try to make the cover out of this top part here. So basically I'm just using my craft knife, and I'll probably do it from here and get all those edges cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. Okay, I'm back with that. Now what I'm going to do, some of the edges are a little rough. I was a little rough with that, I think. So I'm just going to go over this with my craft knife and smooth out the edges, just to kind of even out the edges just a little bit. So to do that, I'm just using my metal ruler and my craft knife again, and I'll just fix up those edges. Nice and smooth. Alright, so now this is great. This is looking good. So it is longer than it's going to be tall, right? So I am going to cut this down just a tiny bit. I want to keep as much of the graphic and words, obviously, as possible. But I also need to leave a little space for some kind of a spine, a spine wrap coming up in the front. So I'm going to line this up with my cutting mat. I'm going to do it this way. It's easier for me. So I'm going to line it up with my cutting mat and then get a nice straight line and cut this in just a little bit right here. So I'm going to figure it out here. I think if I cut it right here, that'll give me some space. And I can cut it down later if I believe that's too much. Or, yeah, if I left too much. But that looks pretty good, like that. That leaves me probably a ½ inch to work with right here. So I think that'll be good. Okay, all right, now I need to cut a back cover, the matching size of this. And I did notice that the rest of the box, which is the bottom of the box, is quite a bit smaller than the top, obviously, because the lid fits over the top of the bottom. But so it's quite a bit more than I want to cut off on that. So I'm not going to use the bottom of the box for that. But I did find a piece of paper board that's very similar in weight to this. This is a little stiffer than this, but I think it'll work out just fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace this and cut this out as well. Okay, all done. So this was just a scrap. Fact is, I've got some, I've used it for other things, clearly. So anyway, now we have a front and back cover. Okay, so you may be wondering how I'm gonna finish these edges, because they're all gonna fray because of the layers of paperboard on there. So I was kind of racking my brain trying to figure that out, but I was looking through my washi tape. So if you use regular washi tape, that's great. And I've used that before on little golden books. But it will have to be, since it's for a book cover and it'll be used and open to closed, you have to definitely glue it on rather than just using the washi tape adhesive. Is usually not strong enough to last very long. So anyway, I was looking through my washi tape, thinking washi tape would be a great idea. And actually, when I look at this, that would be really cute too. But I'll be making other little books, so that's probably an idea right there. What I came across was this. This is fabric tape. I was going to say washi tape, but that doesn't make sense, right? So this is fabric. If you are familiar with Tim Holtz products, he has several fabric tapes, and so I came across this in my stash. I thought that would be really cute. So I'm going to go ahead. This is probably going to be the tricky part. I'm going to not worry about this edge because I'm probably going to cover that with fabric, so I'm not going to be worried about that edge, but I'm going to go ahead. And this washi, or this fabric tape is, let's see, it is 3/4 of an inch wide, and I think that'll be plenty of room to put it on there and then wrap it in the back. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to glue this all on these 3 edges. And when it comes to the corners, that's going to be tricky too, but I'm going to try to figure that out with you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead. This is adhesive, so you peel off the back. You peel off the back and it does stick, but like I said, I want to reinforce it with my favorite glue, which is a very good sticker honor, and that is Fabrifix, or Fabri-Tac, or all the Fabra products from Beacon. They're super good. So like I said, this is going to be a little bit tricky, and the corners as well. So what I'm going to do, what I think I'm going to do is just give myself plenty of room here to wrap and turn corners, and then cut that off so I don't have to deal with that whole spool. Alrighty. And I'm more concerned about wrapping on the evenness of wrapping it on the front rather than the back, because the back will probably be covered by paper and it'll cover up the ends of this. So I am more worried about how far down here on the front it is and how even that is. So I'm going to work on that. That's going to be my priority rather than the back. The back doesn't matter too much. That's why when you look at it, it's going to be upside down like this. So the first thing I'm going to do, this tape actually has 4 sections, right? Because it's the plaid, and that I'm going to use that to my advantage. Otherwise, what I would probably do is mark down 1/4 inch here and 1/4 inch here, and then line that up with the edge of the tape. But since it has the 4 quadrants, I can just eyeball it, I think, and put that down there. So that's my plan. All right, so I'm going to put glue here, and then I'm going to line it up with my lines and glue it down just like that. So I just put a bead of glue here, just to strengthen the fabric tape, because I think it's going to, over time, I think it will need a little bit of extra stuff rather than just the tape, glue, the tape. Okay, so I'm going to press it down really well. I'm going to also look, though. I'm going to take a peek to make sure that it's looking good, and I think it is. I'm going to maybe come in just a tiny bit, but I think it'll be fine, especially with the glue on there. So this type of glue is there's a little bit of leaking here, so I'm going to get that before it dries too much. It's much easier to erase when it's still fresh. Okay, there's a little bit of the fabric coming off there in a string because I've worked with it a little bit too much, I think. Anyway, there's that. And before I glue it down on the other side, I'm going to take a peek at this and make sure I know how to do those corners. I think, yeah, I think it'll be fine. All right, so now get this tape flat. Now I'm going to put a bead of glue here. This one's a little bit, comes down deeper into the cover. And so once again, I'm going to put a little glue along this edge and glue this tape down. And I might need to come in and tack a little bit of glue on there as well. So I lifted the corner up a little bit, and then I'm going to wrap it, and using my lines again, I'm going to press it down, making sure it looks straight. A little bit fussy, isn't it? But I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun. You don't have to do any collaging, right? It's all done for you. Oh, so this is sticking to itself. Let me grab that. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave that corner up a little bit. It seemed to be easier to turn if I did that. So here we go on this side. This edge here. I'm not going to... You notice that I didn't glue that down yet because I think it is easier for me to get this front all done first. After trial and error here. Okay, so we're gonna get that. Turn this. Gonna make sure that it's lined up with my squares. Actually, this has a little bottom edge on the graphic that's helping me too. Making sure that's nice and flat, and then put a little dab where those tapes overlap right there. Okay. Yeah. Yep. That line on the graphic actually helped me quite a bit. Okay. So I'm going to cut this off. Don't have to deal with that anymore right now. So I did glue down that first one. Now let me glue down all of the edges here in the back. Okay, so I think that's good. Cut this off here. Alright, so now the edges are finished. They won't fray, and they're glued down tightly with Fabrifix. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'm super happy with that. I think this will be really cute. And so my thought is to maybe make this into, I don't know. I think I'll make it like a regular journal. Okay, so then I'm going to decide on what to do with this back since it's not very attractive. I'll need to figure that out. So far so good. I'm going to go off camera, figure out what to do with this, and then do the edges the exact same way as this. So I'll be back with all of that. Okay, I did find a little brick pattern in that same aqua color, and I think that'll look cute on the back. So we're going to go ahead and go for that. I wasn't going to show you this part, but I think it might be helpful. So what I'm going to do is cover this whole thing with this paper, and I'm going to just glue that right down. This paper is kind of a lightweight cardstock, so this won't show through. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a good glue. And it is helpful too when you're gluing this whole surface flat like that. It is helpful to have a very even sort of coating of glue on here. If you're into double-sided tape or something, or a different type of glue, that's perfectly fine too. It's just kind of my preference, and it's like a universal purpose, all-purpose type glue, so I'm liking that. Alright, and then I'm going to center it. It doesn't really have to be exact. Center it as best I can just by looking at it. Okay, and then I'm going to use my bone folder and smooth that out. You know what, it does have that brick pattern, so let me see if I'm lined up with the bricks, because that actually would drive me a little bit crazy. Let's see how we're doing there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, just like that. Get some of that glue off my hands real quick. Okay, and then we're going to cut the corners, leaving about 1/8 of an inch between the corner and the cut part of the paper. Just a nice diagonal, doesn't have to be anything special. Alright, and then what is helpful is to put a crease in the paper to help it bend toward the back here. So just using my bone folder, you could use the edge of a ruler, whatever you have. Just give it a little bit of a mark or a line so that it folds easier. Alright, and then we'll probably need this, so let me bring that back over. I'm going to start at the long edge. I usually start at the long edge. I'm going to smooth that out. Sorry, I need to get my hand wiper. Okay, so then we're going to just fold that in. And like that. Okay, then that little 1/8 of an inch distance we left, I guess, we're just gonna kind of come in like this and fold that over. So we're just kind of folding that over. And then tucking that in a little bit. We'll do the same thing on all 4 corners. Okay, there we go. Doesn't have to be perfect looking or even, because we're going to cover this all up. But so there's what it's going to look like, and that'll be the back cover here. But I want to make it consistent with the front, so I'm going to put that tape on as well, just on the 3 sides. It doesn't have to be done. It doesn't have to be done on this side, just these 3 sides here. So I'm going to continue with that. All right, all done with the back cover. Let's put the trim on it, just like the front. And it has this little brick design, just kind of cute. And also, I wrapped this edge, which is going to be covered, so that was totally unnecessary. In case you caught that, I wanted to mention that. I realized my mistake afterward, but no big deal. It's all going to be fine. So, so there we have it. I was trying to figure out a way to do the spine in some of these images, which may be cute, but like it was cutting off part of the guy and the words, it would cut off some of the words. So I just decided to make my own spine. I cut one out 2.5 inches wide by the height of the book, and I just did it out of this scrap cardboard paper board that I had. So that'll fit together like that. And I'm going to use this. I cut out a piece of fabric to make sure it overlaps at least 1/2 inch on each side like this, and then the spine will fit in the middle like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this book cover together, and then we'll do the inside as well. Simply just gluing. I'm going to glue this first. Oh, so you also may notice, but I do put interfacing on my fabric spines, just so the glue doesn't seep through. I have a problem with that, so it's just something I do. Definitely don't have to. And I also stitched on each side, because that will show on the front of the book. So it's just kind of what I do. You don't have to do any of that. Those are kind of extra steps. I even did a little math on this one, but it's still usable. So I'm going to even that out a little bit, and then top to bottom, side to side, I'm going to center this as evenly as I can. And since my interfacing is crooked, it's also sort of hard for me to see if that's straight, so I'm going to just tinker with it a little bit here. Yeah, looks like we're straight. Okay, and then we're going to glue just this part of the cover onto that fabric as well, leaving a little gap. And the gap is just so that it will bend easily. I'm trying to decide here if I should do the actual cover. I don't want to make too big of a mess. It's just easier to glue the flat surface of a piece of paper or cardboard than it is fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. But you could do it either way. You could actually put glue onto the fabric as well. So I'm just going to carefully lift this up and make sure that this spine bends easily, which it does. Sometimes people have a little template or something that they stick in there to make sure, you know, something like this, and then they butt it up. So I do that sometimes, and sometimes I just fiddle with it. All right, so make sure that looks good and glued there. And that it bends, which it looks like it does just fine. All right, same thing over here. Make sure my cover, everything is still looking good. And if I need to put a little extra glue, you know, tuck this fabric up and put a little extra glue, I will definitely be able to do that. That is not a problem either. Okay, press it just a bit. I'm gonna fuss with it, make sure it closes and opens, and it looks pretty good. Okay, I'm also going to check and see if it's even, which it looks like it is. And I'm so glad I didn't get too much bigger with this fabric. I could have gotten a little bit bigger and had it go over a little bit more, but I'm glad I didn't interfere with the image, the graphic on the front. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now we have our cover. Let me hold that up and show it to you. Looking fun. And then the inside obviously needs a little work. So let's get that looking nice. Okay, so I cut a piece of fabric pretty much the same as the outside. Looks like it's a little bit too long, a little bit. So before I get to gluing, I'm going to cut that down just a tiny, tiny bit here. Looks like it. Okay, so my plan is to go ahead and cover this. Sometimes I leave the edges open like this on the back cover, but sometimes I'll cover it up so that just a little bit of that spine shows, and I think that's what I'm going to do here. So I did find some paper that I thought was fun, that would work with this, and I did ink the edges with, I thought brown would look kind of funny, so I inked it with pumice stone just to give it a little extra dimension there, and grunge it up a tiny bit, because that cover is definitely, it probably used to be a white box, but it's definitely not white anymore, so we want to make sure to kind of get the same feel. And I thought maybe it wasn't necessary to put interfacing on here, but I think I'm going to, and I'll be back in a minute. All right, got my interfacing glued on, but before I do that, I'm going to actually get the little spots I missed on the cover. I'd mentioned that if I needed to, you know, lift this up and glue it, but I actually did a fairly decent job of getting that glued down. So that's surprising and good. Okay, alrighty, there we go. All right, now let's flip this over and take care of this inside again. All right, so if we just left it like this, it's going to, you know, pull away from the cover. So you have to secure this as well with either paper or fabric like I'm using, or something along those lines. I guess you could even do Tyvek or something, as long as you kind of pretty it up a little bit. You could use one layer of Tyvek, which is flexible and definitely usable for that. All right, so I didn't worry too much about the edges, but because obviously I'm covering them with paper, as I explained earlier, but I did kind of put that on the ends, on the center of this piece. So all I'm going to do here now is just glue this fabric down onto the spine. Super easy. And then I'll lift that up a little bit, and we'll also put glue down into this crevice here. So lining it up side to side, top to bottom. It's gonna you know, be about the same size as that fabric you had on the front as well, if you do it this way. And that looks great. Okay, so that, and then it is important to get into this crevice right here so that these fabrics stick to each other, and that'll give it some more staying power as far as folding and refolding a book. So we're going to do that, and then it comes up here on the cover just a tiny bit, so do that. And then I'm going to I think I'm just going to use my fingernail and get that glue down into the crevice and up along the very edges of those. Okay, and then I'm using my ruler a lot today. I'm just going to get my ruler, get that in there, and then smooth that back over. There you go. So you can see how that is going to stick to the fabric on the front. And let me flip this upside down and get this one. And that interfacing is helping me as far as leaking glue onto the fabric. But even if it does, it's really not a huge deal. Okay. Really push it down and then smooth it over. Okay, so then you've got a nice bendy piece there. All right, now I'm going to glue these on. You know, I don't think I'll, sometimes you could sew the edges of these. Yeah, I think I'll sew that. I'll be back. All right, I'm back. I sewed the edges with a black. And I started gluing already. So basically just gluing these down right over the fabric. I made the fabric just barely smaller than the cover, but it has a nice edge because of that fabric tape that we put on there, and it covers it up and secures that fabric tape as well. So that's all good. I'm going to smooth that down. And then, of course, you don't want it to interfere with your bend, right? So it just comes right up to the bend there. Really press that down and smooth it down. Oops, tipped over my glue. All right, I had a little squish out up there. Get my fabric eraser. Or glue eraser, not fabric eraser. That would be crazy. I would never have one of those in my house. All right. So here is our beautiful book cover. I will fill it so you can see what it looks like all done. And I am super excited about this. It also inspires me to, you know, to work on those other game covers that I've kept, some vintage ones, which I think are great, but I haven't used them up. So it's a good way, or it's a good time to start using that kind of stuff up. Love it. I hope you do too, but I'll be back in a minute and I'll show you what it looks like finished. All right, I'm back. I wanted to show you the finished product of this game box, that vintage game box that I used for the cover. So I showed you how to make the cover. I did use 5 signatures of coffee stained paper. I didn't put a lot of different types of papers in here as I usually do because this is so long, I had to actually use 11 by 17 inch paper so that when I folded that over, it would fit on this length right here. So I couldn't use a lot of my like scrapbooking papers or my hand-dyed papers or anything like that in the signatures themselves. And so, so it's mostly coffee stain paper, and I have it all decorated, like all kinds of pockets and tucks and booklets and everything else. Lots of fibers here that are on the edges of the book. I have some tabs and all kinds of stuff sticking out up there. So I had a lot of fun with this. I can't wait to make more out of the other game boxes that I have, so we'll have to keep you filled in on that. So I have the 5 signatures. There are 200 pages including fronts and backs, and I sewed them directly into the spine using a turquoise colored thread on that, and the back is the plain, the way we made it earlier. I do think it would be kind of cool to put either a label here or some kind of image in one of these corners just for fun, so I might do that later. Also maybe a little tassel, but and I think that would be cute though. The tassel is only going to be a few inches long, but I think that would be cute. So I guess I'm not 100% done, but the book itself is 100% done. Let me just show you real quick how I use some of the other game pieces, or game, like the cards and the instruction booklet. So this was long enough to fit 2 little mini slotted pockets, and I have all kinds of ephemera in there, and there are 2 cards in there as well, just plain cards. And then I use the cards in different ways in the rest of the book as well. And then little snippets from the instruction booklet like this here, I use for some more decorations. So, for example, I glued 2 cards together and used that as a tuck spot. Let me see if I can find a couple more ways I used. I used a card as a tuck spot here. So sometimes I use the face of the card, and sometimes I use the back of the card. Let me find a couple more spots maybe that I can show you. This is just a card tucked into that tuck spot. I used one of the ends of the game to actually just decorate this page. This is from the instruction booklet. I used made it into a little writing spot ephemera card there. This, I used the back of the card and used it as a pocket. That's about it as far as, oh, this is another piece of the game box right here. I used that as a pocket. And there was a spot in here I'll show you real quick. I used, this was the cover of the instruction booklet, so I just used that as sort of like a 2-page spread right there. And the back cover, I put a little pocket flip, envelope flip I mean, and so they become pockets for these little pieces of ephemera. And then I only glued the 2 edges here so that there is a spot in the back for some ephemera as well. And I just untied this when I pulled it out. But there's a little bow on here, and I'll fix that later. But that is the way I did the back, inside back cover. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and that you'll give it a try. Or maybe you'll even find at a garage sale this summer. Maybe you'll find a fun little box or something. And it's just the perfect weight for a cover, and it was a lot of fun to make. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned for lots more content. We have all kinds of things coming up. Take care, and we appreciate you, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.